This session will be presided by Professor Dharmachand Jain, and we have four number of papers. The first speaker is Professor S.P. Padma Prasad. He is going to deliver lecture on way of Jainas as depicted in their folk and classical literature. Now I welcome all of you, all the speakers to have their seat. Yes. Second speaker, Swatika. Swatika. Please have your seat here on the dais. Yes. Akashdeep. Akashdeep, please have your seat. Mr. Akashdeep. Absent is here. Akashdeep नहीं है. Next speaker, Dr. Simi Simoni. Respected chairperson of this session and all the speakers, I welcome you all to this session to deliver your lecture on your papers. And before presentation, I would like to offer some shawl and garland for welcoming you all. Firstly, I can request to Professor Mehta sir to welcome Swatika with shawl and garland. Professor S.P. Padma Prasad. Dr. Simi Simoni. Now, I would like to invite respected Professor S.P. Padma Prasad to deliver his lecture on way of Jainas as depicted in their folk and classical literature. Please, sir.
सारे विद्वज्जन और विद्यार्थीगण सबके लिए मेरा नमस्कार। मैं बेंगलोर से 70 किलोमीटर दूरी के एक शहर से आ रहा हूं। मेरे सिटी के यूनिवर्सिटी में मालवीय जी के नाम पर एक गेस्ट हाउस है, वहां उनके किताब है, उनका आर्टिकल का इंडेक्स है, अच्छा संग्रह है उनके किताबों का। इसके बाद मैं अपना टॉपिक पर आता हूं। My topic is Jaina way of living as depicted in Kannada literature, both folk and classical. Karnataka is the stronghold of Jainism in South India. Even though Jainism flourished in In the past, in other states of South India, like Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, and Kerala, it is now reduced to a meager percentage due to attacks and all other things. But Jains coming from North India and who have settled there, they are in good number. Since about 4 generations they have come. The present generation of Shwetambar Jains are almost born and bred in Karnataka and in other South Indian states. It is an established fact that Jainism entered Karnataka around 3rd century BC when Chandragupta and Bhadrabahu came to Shravanbelagula. In Karnataka, both Digambar and Shwetambar Jain sects are living with great good harmony of difference. जैन दिगंबर है और श्वेतांबर में 13 पंथी, मंदिर मार्गी, 20 पंथी, मूर्ति पूजक श्वेतांबर, ये सभी सेक्ट्स है, मगर दिगंबर और श्वेतांबर में कर्नाटक में उतना झगड़ा नहीं है. Shwetambar Jains are the original natives of Karnataka. So Digambar Jains are original natives of Karnataka. Shwetambar Jains have migrated here around 4 generations ago. That means around 200 years before. Present generation of Shwetambar Jains are almost born in Karnataka itself. Daily life. Jaina way of living as depicted in Kannada literature shows the culture, beliefs, behaviors, and traditions of Digambar Jains as they only created Jaina literature in Kannada. Digambar Jains in Karnataka since early times lived following the rules presented in their sacred texts. It is said that it is in Ratnakaranda Shravakachara, 6 acharas are prescribed for household Jains. That is Deva Puja, Guru Pasti, Swadhyaya, Samyamastapaha, Danam Cheti, Grihasthanam, Shatkarmani, Dine Dine. All these 6 conducts are being followed. So a Jaina householder should worship God, serve the saints, read Jaina Agamas, follow self-control, give some donations, and meditate every day. This was followed by almost all Jains in olden days. Though illiterate Jains could not read religious texts themselves, they used to hear it from learneds, including gurus. Presently, this habit of Swadhyaya is limited to a meager percentage. There is a folk song in which it tells that the Sas, mother-in-law, asked Bahu, the daughter-in-law, to bring and keep the light in front so that her husband reads the Purana and he reads it for such a long time that it dawns. So, ಮಾತು ಉಳ್ಳರ ಮಗಳೇ ಜ್ಯೋತಿ ಉಳ್ಳರಸು ನೀತಿ ಉಳ್ಳರ ಸೊಸೆಯೇ ಜ್ಯೋತಿ ತಂದಿರಿಸೆ ಜಗುಲಿಗೆ ಜ್ಯೋತಿ ತಂದಿರಿಸೆ ಜಗುಲಿಗೆ ನಿನ ಪುರಿಸ ಶಾಸ್ತ್ರವನ್ನೋದುವುದೇ ಬೆಳಗಾದು. That means the mother-in-law tells her daughter-in-law that you are the daughter-in-law of a person who is ethical and you are the daughter of a person who never misses his words, who always keeps his words. You bring and keep the light in the front part of the house so that your husband reads the grantha, the text, so for such a long time that it almost becomes dawn. So how in a sweet manner she asks her daughter-in-law to do a task. Deva Puja is being done at majority of houses even today. But ladies and people above 40 years perform it more when compared to youths. In this aspect, Shwetambar Jains have maintained a better practice than Digambars. Even among Digambars, while performing puja, traditional mantras, hymns, are known to less number of people. Old ladies and gents know it better. But at temples, songs and bhajans are sung in groups. It is a pleasant experience to hear those songs, children and youth join singing it if they know it or view it silently with devotion. Guru Seva or Muni Seva is done in Kannada. The word Muni is used only for Digambar saints. For other level of Jaina saints, we use the word Guru or Saint or Yati, like that. So, Guru Seva or Muni Seva is done in a befitting manner even today. Both Digambar Munis and Bhattarakas. Bhattaraka is the pontiff of a mutt, head of a Jain mutt. Bhattarak Parampara is more in South India. In North India, it is less. In places like Hastinavati, etc., at one or two places, Bhattaraks are now established. So Munis and Bhattarakas are attended always by all ages. They are treated with high respect. It is worth recalling that majority of Digambar Munis, that means nude saints, hail from Karnataka. It is said that there are about 2,800 Digambar Munis. About 70% or 80% hail from Karnataka. That too from one single district called Belgaum district. आचार्य शांति सागर जी, मुनि विद्यानंद जी और विद्यासागर महाराज, पार्य सागर महाराज, etc. They all hail from that Belgaum district. Following suggestions given by Munis and Bhattarakas, many old temples and kshetras are renovated and sacred texts are edited and published. Performing meditation, that is japa, is done for different durations by Shravakas of different ages. It is a regular practice. Previous generations, that means about till 50 years ago, were singing folk songs while doing different works. That included reciting names of jinas, yakshis and gurus. We can cite some examples. Previous generations, till about 50 or 60 years ago, Jaina folk songs were widely sung. And I most humbly submit that I am the first person to collect these folk songs, which were so far unknown to even folklore scholars in Karnataka. And I analyzed it, compared with Jaina classical literature, and submitted my doctoral thesis. So, some examples, while doing different works, they were taking the names of jinas, yakshas, yakshis, and gurus, etc. Some one or two examples could be cited. While grinding the curds to produce buttermilk and butter, they used to sing this song. Siddhare gatiyendu addide kadegola Siddha saligana dayadinda Siddha saligana dayadinda nammaniya majjige lavva hosa benne. The meaning is, I put the grinding wooden stick into the pot of curds, recalling Siddhas, and by his grace, I got good buttermilk and good butter on it. So, and the performing vrata is called Nompi. There is a great amount of Nompi kathas or Nompi stories in Kannada literature. It is said that they are written down between 14th and 18th centuries. About 400, 450 such Nompi kathas are there, and about 200 of them have been edited and published by different Kannada scholars. So, There is one belief that uh, if you leave your wife, if you desert your wife for she didn't beget children, it is equal to the sin that you perform a nompi and leave it in the middle, in half, leave it unfinished. The sins are equal. It is said. ಮಡದಿ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಲ್ಲೆಂದೆನ್ನುತ್ತಾ ಮಡದಿಯ ಬಿಟ್ಟರೆ ಧರ್ಮದ ಬಸ್ತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅರೆನೋಂಪಿ, ಧರ್ಮದ ಬಸ್ತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅರೆನೋಂಪಿ ಮಾಡಿದರೆ ಪಾಪ ಬೆನ್ನತ್ತಿ ಬರುವುದು. That means if you leave the wife for the reason that she didn't beget children, and if you do nompi and leave it unfinished, then sin follows you for generations together. That is there. So and the framework of all these Nompi stories is of similar. They have a common base. That is, usually Raja Shrenika comes to Samosrana and then he asks the Ganadharas there, what good Nompi I can perform, what good Aradhana or Vrata I can perform to get such and such a benefit. Then the Ganadhara tells him, you perform this Nompi or that Nompi. Then he asked them to tell in detail the method of performing it. They then tell the method. On such and such a day it should perform, such and such dravya should be used, etc. And such and such yakshi or yaksha, and etc. After all hearing all that, the Shrenika couple again asked them, is there any person in the past who performed this nompi and got a better life after death? Then they tell the story of a person who performed such nompi and took rebirth as in a better position, or who took birth in heaven, etc. Observing Pancha Anuvratas. A lot of mentions are found in Kannada literature, both classic and folk, about observing Pancha Anuvratas by Shravaks. Observing Ahimsa, Satya, non-stealing, that is Asteya, Aparigraha and Brahmacharya are accepted and followed by majority of Jains in Karnataka also. In one epic poetry called Jinadattaraya Charitam, there is one pilgrimage place called Hombuja, where the Yakshi Padmavati is the main deity, and it is believed that she settled there, blessing her devotee Jinadattaraya to create a capital there, and that capital ran in a glorious position for 7 centuries, from 7th century to 14th century. Afterwards, the descendants went down to Karkala and Mudbidri and established different kingdoms there. So, in that epic Padmavati Mahatmyam or Jinadattaraya Charite, it is described that how that family, Jinadataraya's parents, followed Jainism, all Panchanuvratas, but later Jinadataraya's father, Sakar Maharaja, fell in love with a hunter girl, took her in marriage, brought her to his capital, resided in a different house, and later he became a non-vegetarian, flesh eater, and even human flesh he started eating, and he developed enmity towards his son. Jinadattaraya ran from that place and he came to Humcha, etc. So here, how the following of Panchanuvratas brings one person into a good position, and how deviating from Jaina principles takes a man to a lower status, and he has to suffer a lot. Similarly, Yashodhara Charita is another epic in Kannada. That Yashodhara Charita, there are about 64 Yashodhara Charitas in India. Out of that, 40 are there in Sanskrit, one in Gujarati, one in Marathi, one in Tamil, and one in Kannada, and some are in Prakrit and Apabhramsh. So, is this Yashodhara Charita also a deviation from this normal way of following Jaina principles? How it takes people to lower levels, and how even the thought of committing violence takes a person to hellish experiences. This is said. So, in the morning, it is said that about avoiding night meal, it is said. So, in one folk song, it comes that uh, the Jains won't take food unless the morning sunlight touches the doors of temple. Even the youngest son in the home is following this vrata, it is said. So, to observe the Anurat Samyam, Shravakas follow simple rules like not consuming onion, etc. during festival days, not going to hotels during Ashtanika Parva, etc. While on pilgrimage to places like Shravanbelagola, etc., they take oath that they will not take such and such food till they reach Shravanbelagola, may take the darshan of Bahubali Swami and then return. So, in this way, there are large amount of people are following Panchanavratas and the Shetkarmas as depicted in the scriptures, classical Jaina scriptures, and a lot of Jain literature, both classical and folk, are there, published and preserved even today, that is being followed. Thank you for the opportunity.
Many thanks, sir, for your thought-provoking as well as it is, I can say, informative as well. And now we can invite at least two questions. Okay, so I think Mike, someone.
From Belgaum district, from one district. What is the reason from one place? Number of Jain Munis. There are number of Jain Munis from Belgaum district only. Vidyasagar. अच्छा. हाँ. विद्यासागर वगैरह सब एक जगह से क्यों हुए हैं?
Technique, eh?
Belgaum district, why Jain Munis, all Munis from one place? More than 100 Munis from one place.
Why?
Which one?
Belgaum district, you told something.
Folk song.
No. There's a lot of Jain Munis you
Huh?
put, you know, Jain Munis,
Huh.
Vidyasagar ji,
Folk song.
Jain Munis,
Huh.
Vidyasagar ji, and others. Why all of them they belong to Belgaum region only?
Hmm.
That is the section.
All among about 4 lakh Jains in Karnataka, majority of them following the Shetkarmas and other things. And then even in the literature produced in the 19th century and 20th century, the characters or the heroes, heroines, even the common people, both type of negative and positive characters. Negatives are less, positives are more in number. How they followed the principles and got into better state, and even in adverse circumstances, they followed the principles, etc. That is explained there in a beautiful way.
Thank you, sir. Any other question? Come on. Assis, it's Mike.
My question to you, sir, as you are working on folklore culture of Jainism, which is a very less we can say less explored field, or we can say unexplored field. I want to know how far this folklore help to spread in Jainism? How far this folklore help to spread Jainism? How far this folklore help to spread Jainism?
The
Folklore help to spread Jainism.
how folklore helps.
There are all genres of folk literature are found in Karnataka Jains, proverbs, kahavate. There is one proverb, as I told, avoiding night meal. There is one proverb, Jain rohasa kaude hasa. Hasa means the evening meal. After evening meal, Jains will have no other work. They simply sleep down, spreading their bed and putting the bed sheet on the. It is one funny proverb. Astonishingly, there is one proverb prevailing in Marathi-speaking areas of Karnataka, that is Sampal sodu, Jainal sodu na. That means if you find a Jain and a snake together, you beat the snake, you beat the Jain, not the snake. Why that proverb came into existence, it is unknown. So that is one interest. And there are other things. There is one regional dialect called Tulu, which is spoken in the south coastal district. There, Jaina Nante Ijji. That means Jaina has no relations at all. That means he is Vairagyapara. He is Vairagyapara. That is, he is like a saint, it is said. And regarding non-violence, so you do some simple mistake and then get a heavy punishment for that. For that, there is a proverb that Jaina meen tinda hage, as if a Jain consumed fish. That means he lost every merit. So like that. And there are prolonged songs like Diksha Geet. A youth, unmarried youth coming from a rich, prestigious family, he tells his parents that he would go and take Diksha. Then his parents try to dissuade him, telling how difficult it is to become a Muni and follow the rules. That for to every point raised by his parents, he tells, no, I have to observe all those things and I have to become a Muni, he says. Like that. And there are songs telling the desires of going to pilgrimage places like Shravan etc. And the difficulties, what they did there. They conducted Mahamastakabhisheka, head anointing ceremony, etc. So such a lot things are there.
Thank you, sir. Now, the second paper is Jainapur Principles for Life by Swatika.
Professor Mehta, Dr. Anand Kumar Jain, Professor Anand Mishra sir, Dr. Garima Jain, Professor DC Jain sir, and my fellow colleagues over here. Very warm and good afternoon to all, and Jaidu Jinando. Hope everyone had a very good meal. The meal that was served was based on Jain way of the way we eat, consume food. It was not having onion, not having potato and things like that. Hope everybody enjoyed that. I'll start with my topic today, which is on Jain way that we implement for the food that we are using. So I'll start with the abstract first and then go with the introduction part. It is written at one place in Mahatma Gandhi's Atmakatha, The Experiment of Truth. With the idea of supporting my vow of celibacy, I started following fasting and decided to keep it on Ekadashi day. Auspicious results can come out only if there is a constant feeling of controlling the subject and conquering the taste during the days of fasting. Gandhiji was influenced by Jainism. In Jainism, fasting has been said to be for the destruction of karma. Just as a lion defeats, in the same way, fasting is capable of destroying lust. As the earth's water dries up in summer, in the same way, sins are destroyed by fasting. Shravak, Jain Shravak, is identified by three things. One is Dev Darshan, that is daily you visit the temple and visit the temple and then have darshan of God. Jina, drinking after filtering, you filter the water and then have it. And dinner sacrifice, that is you don't eat post sunset. There is inevitably violence among those who eat at night. In artificial light, more microorganisms are generated which get mixed in the food items. In Swami Kartini Priksha, Shravak Dharma, it has been said that Shravak neither consumes food at night nor does he make others consume them. The vegetarian way of life is very natural and is related to the basic existence of man. It is estimated that the existence of man on earth is 151 million years old. In these, for 14 crore 65 lakh years, he filled his stomach with fruits, flowers, kandamul, leaves, plants, which he used to collect and eat in different seasons. There's a paleontologist, Dr. Alan Baker. He has proved that the antiquity of vegetarianism with his discoveries and has concluded that the basic diet of man was vegetarian and fruit eating only. So I'll just start with the introduction part. Jainism is basically just not a religion, it's a way of living. There are many Jain old scriptures and holy books. And one of the most, as we all know, is Tattvar Sutra, which is written by Acharya Uma Swami. In lesson 5th, there is one small sutra which says, Parasparo Graho Jiva Nam, which means all lives are complementary to each other. Whether it is an ant, mosquito, an elephant, or human, no one is more or less important. In nature, all the lives, including plants and even microorganisms, they help each other. So great is the Jain's reverence for all forms of life that monks will not kill insects that bite them, till the soil which may harbor small forms of life, or eat after sunset lest they accidentally ingest a bug. It goes with meat. Some of the basic beliefs of Jainism are based on non-violence, live and let live, the karma philosophy which says that all lives they took birth and find happiness and sorrow based on their own karmas earned in current and even previous lives. Jainism also talks about the soul is different from the body. Once a person dies, his only present body died, but souls remain intact, which immediately took birth in another form of life. Now we'll go through the Jain diet, which says that there's like a lot of rules regarding the Jain diet in itself. It talks about what is edible, what is not edible, what is actually a food, what is not food. Probably not that much it is found in other religious texts. What should be eaten, what should not be eaten, when should be eaten, how it should be eaten, how much it should be eaten, when and how to prepare food, etc. All this has been stored in books related to Jainism. Jain Acharyas related rules seem different from all these above. When we take a closer look at all these rules, we find that not only as these rules inspired by non-violence, compassion and kindness to animals, but also these rules are very important from the point of view of cleanliness and health. Now we'll talk about some of the inedible substances which are described in the Jain scriptures. In Jainism, there is prohibition on the consumption of those substances in which there is an ambush of the trust jivas. There is gross violence and which is injurious to health. Only substances without the trust jiva should be consumed. Food has a great influence on thoughts and life. On this basis, in almost all Indian philosophies, food is divided into 3 categories, that is tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic. The inedible substances mentioned above often come in tamasic and rajasic food. Rajasic food refers to that food which nourishes the senses, leads to luxury, and produces indolence. By continuing to eat this type of food, a person becomes a slave to the tongue and starts losing the conscience of eating and drinking. Sattvic food means that food which contains such things with which there is no chance of getting ambushed, nor there is any physical violence, and at the same time it does not increase indolence. Such sattvic food is far better from the point of view of spiritual practice and health. In almost all Indian philosophies, emphasis has been laid on eating only sattvic food. All kinds of vegetables, grains, milk, ghee, oil, etc. come under sattvic food. But in Jainism, this sattvic food has also been divided into 2 categories. One in which there is violence of many subtle living beings, and the other in which violence of the subtle living beings is reduced. Jain Acharyas have asked to take the second type of sattvic food and not to take it for the householders. It is often seen that the person who eats such sattvic food does not suffer from ill health, in contrast to those who eat non-vegetarian food or rich food every day. It is advised to eat sattvic food only. One who has heart disease, for him, meat, alcohol, and rich or rajasic food is like poison. In the age of science today, we all know that if a substance becomes old beyond a certain time limit, it becomes rancid. and is no longer edible. The main reason for this is that bacteria have to increase their progeny in that food item. If someone consumes such old food, then his health may deteriorate. Nowadays, all the packaged food items available in the market have expiry date which is written on them. Jain Acharyas also had a special knowledge that after how long microorganisms start multiplying in food. These microorganisms should not be destroyed and health should also be maintained. With this in view, they fixed a time limit, which is a Maryada Kal, for various food items. Today, the trend of fast food is in full swing. Therefore, to save the prepared food from rotting for a long time, many types of preservatives are added to this food. Due to these preservatives, bacteria, etc., are not able to increase their progeny. Due to this, their shelf life increases. But we ignore the situation which adversely affects our health. Preservatives which harm small living beings, in fact, they also harm our health. They are just a kind of poison which we consume in the form of preservatives. Using filter water is something the Jains they regularly follow. Special emphasis has been given in Jain scriptures to use purified and filtered water. Making water devoid of life is called purification. The method of purifying water has also been given a lot of importance. If the water is filtered through a thick cotton cloth, it becomes free from all living beings. Householders can use such filtered raw water, but its limit has been told only for 48 minutes, which is one Antar Muhurat. After 48 minutes, water should not be used. If clove or cumin seeds are mixed in this filtered water, then its limit increases to 6 hours. And if this filtered water is heated, then the limit is 12 hours. And if it is boiled, then the limit becomes 24 hours. Jains, they don't prefer eating after sunset. So Jain Acharyas, they have also told to give up dinner. Householders should neither cook nor eat food at night. Why? The reasons are mentioned. At night, the temperature is lower than during the day, and humidity is relatively high. For this reason, the generation of microorganisms is more in the night. If food is prepared or eaten at night, then the unhappiness of the living beings will be more. Therefore, to avoid this violence of living beings, food should be taken during the day itself. Secondly, it takes some time to digest food. If the meal is taken during a day, it gets enough time to digest before going to sleep. On the contrary, if the food is eaten at night, then there is not enough time to digest it. According to Jainism, food should be taken only during sunlight. Food should never be taken after sunset. Okay. The basic feeling behind this idea is non-violence and kindness to animals. Then there's also concept of fasting. In fasting, main idea is that if we do fasting, it is seen as a crucial process for spiritual growth and religious reasons as well. Jain texts classify fasting into various types, each with specific rules, like abstaining from food and water for specific periods for limited food choices. Jains fast on particular lunar cycle days and during seasons or the monsoon, believing it offers protection from illnesses. Festivals like Paryushan Mahaparv involve significant fasting with forgiveness sought from those wronged. By giving up food, the stomach becomes empty and the energy in the form of gastric fire, which is used to digest food, starts being used for cleaning. The excess matter that remains is destroyed by Jathar Agni, due to which blood also starts forming and the body's immunity starts increasing. It should be clarified here that the main function of Jathar Agni is to digest food, but if it does not get food, it first uses its power to destroy toxins. After its destruction, the food starts getting digested properly. In this way, considering from a scientific point of view also, we find that fasting is very important for health and disease-free life. Along with this, it is also very important in attaining worldly happiness, peace, and salvation. One last point is that vegetarianism will save the environment also. For example, the meat of a cow can satisfy the appetite of a maximum of 50 people, whereas in its entire lifetime, it gives milk that can be fed to about 1 lakh people at a time. A vegetarian can survive on 0.72 acres of land, while a non-vegetarian needs 1.63 acres of land. It is a misconception that if all non-vegetarians become vegetarian, then there will be not enough grains available for them. It takes 50 gallons of water to produce 1 kilo of wheat, while that much beef requires 10,000 gallons of water. If all the people of the world become vegetarian, there will be no shortage of food, but the wastage of natural resources will stop. If only 10% of people in America stop their meat eating, the world can get enough food. In the context of vegetarianism, what can be a bigger example of environmental protection than this? Thank you.
Thank you, Swastika, for your good paper. It is seems very much empirical kind of study. So now we can invite two questions on this paper. Okay, come.
Yeah, so there are different Jain texts wherein the thing that I talked about, Maryada Kal of a food. So being a householder, we don't practice this that much as compared to the monks. The monks, they follow it religiously. So for small things like the wheat or the grain or whatever, so they have small, like they have given a Maryada Kal even for oil and the spices. So all of them, they have been given a particular duration during which that should be prepared and consumed also.
Thank you. I think another. Yes, sir.
Well, thank you for your very interesting paper. I have a couple of queries. Though it was really intriguing to hear on the food habits that the genetics have talked about, and yet I want to know more about it, right? Like uh, the idea that food should not be eaten at night, right? Now, I'm just trying to understand whether it is the fasting which is important, right? Between the having the last meals, like you're having in the morning and the last that you're having in the evening. So that duration of fasting is important in every 24 hours of day and night together, or is it that the food has to be taken in the, as you also mentioned, under sunlight only, right? So I don't understand why it has to be taken only under sunlight and not allowed in the night, because the kind of world we have moved into, where many people are working in the night shifts, right? And if you are not slept, right, you can't really manage without having food during night, right? Whether it should be taken that a certain gap of 13 hours, like in the morning inaugural session, the keynote speaker was mentioning that the 13 hours gap is very important under the Jan scripture. Uh, Another point that you mentioned is about having a vegetarian food. Now, whether having a flesh or non-vegetarian food in itself is problematic, or it is a kind of violence that it actually triggers, right? When people are so much eating non-veg food, right, they are also wantonly killing the animals. Or is it that if the animals have died on themselves, we are allowed to have non-veg food without really killing the animals? So whether it is a problematic thing in eating the flesh itself, or it is because we are killing the animals to take the non-veg food, right? Another point is where certain kinds of foods are really making human beings tamasic, right? Or they develop a kinds of tamasic food. I think it is more like cultural thing, right? That having a kind of food can make you more violent. I think that's not very much scientifically proven. I can see that there are vegetarian people, and yet they are more aggressive and violent in their everyday behavior rather than people who are actually eating non-veg. So it is more linked with the kinds of uh, culturalization in which, right, people like those who are extremely feudal, or if they are born into that feudal tendencies, right, they will be a violent and aggressive without having a non-veg food, right? So how would you like to respond to these
Right.
two questions?
So I
Thank
think
you.
you've got multiple questions. We'll go one by one. First one, you said that in the in the busy life that we have today, people cannot follow eating after sunset is a practice that people normally tend to follow because they reach home late and then they start having food also late. I'll give you my example. I also work, but I have given up eating after sunset for life. So that has really helped me out. I mean, I know it's initially when I tell to my colleagues also, they also get surprised that you're working and you have given up food after sunset. So I said, yes, I've done that. And it has been a practice. It becomes difficult because people who have, they have this habit of eating at night. For them, it would be very, very difficult to give it up one fine day and then, start following it. They cannot do that all of a sudden. It has to be a gradual thing. So if you start doing it, you'll see that there are like a lot of benefits in it. I mean, probably if you tend to the things that I told you, that if you eat late at night and then the digestive system is also not that much, working and active at that period of time, it's better we consume during the daytime only. And there are microorganisms which are there, which we cannot see. Obviously, during sunlight, we'll not have those microorganisms, but after sunset, those microorganisms, they come up and then they get mixed with your food also. So you're consuming them, and it is a kind of violence that we are having. So that food, obviously, we prefer not to have it. One thing that you mentioned was fasting, the concept of fasting, and then the concept of not having food after sunset. So those are like, obviously, they have started this concept of intermittent fasting, which is like, there's a gap of around 12 hours, they say. Like, if you're eating at 6 p.m., then next day you can have your meal after 6 a.m. in the morning, or let's say 18 hours, whatever the timing is. So that is the concept of intermittent fasting. But for us, our basic principle is not to have food after sunset. So like if you're not having it after sunset, then obviously the timing is that only. I mean, obviously somewhere around 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. only, you stop eating. I mean, especially if you go to a Jain home, then you'll see that the kitchen is not working at all. I mean, it's done for the day, and then you'll have food next day in the morning only. So that is our practice. That, I mean, Jainism has told us that yes, you won't be having food after sunset. But then if you're relating it to intermittent fasting, that is obviously because our gap is also the same only. Like, we don't eat after sunset, and next day only we are having food. So that duration, you can actually correlate it to that intermittent fasting period that you were telling in your point also. I think the third point that you talked about, the whether we should be having, killed animals, or whether it's about killing the animals and having it. So for us, it's like a big no. We are not having animals in any form, like whether it is being killed by others, by ourselves, or through any means. So because obviously that would be a, violence that would be there would be a violence thing. I mean, you will be killing that animal, and then you'll be serving it on the table. So that is something that we don't believe in. I mean, any which ways the animal has been killed, or that also we cannot, because the animals which have died, you have got a lot of microorganisms on those animals. They start to grow. Even if we have our own dead body, we'll have those microorganisms which will like start growing at that instant itself, and we are not supposed to eat those microorganisms itself. So whether an animal is already dead or if it is killed by someone else, we cannot have it, because a lot of germs are already there. And I think last point that you mentioned was tamasic. Yeah. So, I mean, I'll give you, like, if you try practicing it, like not to have tamasic food for a week and have tamasic food for another week, you'll see the difference in yourself. I mean, the way you think, probably during that week when you're not having tamasic food, will be quite different from the way you'll be consuming tamasic food and then thinking. You can feel that difference. Try it for yourself. I bet you'll definitely feel that difference. There'll be a lot of purity in your thoughts. They had like lot.
I think you want to know about this stuff scientifically, not only from Jain perspective. So Jainism is very much scientific. Firstly, you spoke about the intermittent fasting. See, this concept is new right now, but in Jainism, they are so much scientific that even 2,600 years ago, they thought of it. And now we are using this term intermittent fasting. Secondly, about the food, whether we will have food by scientific reason is that if we see the anatomy of our anatomy of a body is for the herbivorous. We are herbivorous animal, not for the meeting. If you see the tiger, lion, they have the canine teeth, and the digestive system is different from us. This is the scientific reason. Secondly, and thirdly, you spoke about the sattvic nature and the tamasic nature of the food. Yes, definitely, it will influence your thought, because if we eat tamasic food, it will heat your body and secrete certain hormonal things, which will naturally, create the feeling of hurting anybody or the violence or like that. See, if we see the sadhus and all, and if we see the lay person and lay women, we see the difference in thinking. Why? Because of the nature of the food, and definitely the meditation and the other dincharias they are doing, that is there. But this is the scientific reason. Thank you.
Okay. Go.
Ma'am, I want to kind of add something here from my own experience also. I saw many babas in the tantric practices. That I wanted to point exactly because I guess this is kind of scientifical thing. But if we are watching by the mental, they are saying that the materialistic things and the things which we are eating and whatever is related to the body, it's not important for our mind. If you are enough strong, that will not affect your mind. That's why. Exactly. So there are different traditions, so different mentalities.
Thank you so much, Swastika, for your very interactive paper, and you also attempt very well with the audience, interact very well with the audience. Now we can go for the next speaker, Dr. Simi Simoni, who is going to present her paper tracing the concept of consciousness in Jainism and its impact on the social world. She is pursuing her postdoc here under Mukul Raj Mehta sir. So,
Respected Chairperson and Mehta sir and all the delegates and dear colleagues and my friends, good afternoon. And the title of my paper is Tracing the Concept of Consciousness in Jainism and its Impact on the Social World. The trajectory of my paper will be a brief introduction about the status of heart of consciousness and the theory of consciousness in Jaina particularly. Then what would be Lord Mahavira's concept of social world, and then concluding remarks. So I'm just moving on to the first part of my paper, that consciousness as a status of heart. Very briefly, I'm just including because as I know that we all are means it studies Jaina very well, so I no need to include Jaina introduction. So I'm just coming to consciousness. From the time immemorial, there have been debates among different schools of Indian philosophy with regard to the nature and status of consciousness. There is a misnomer spread worldwide that all Indian philosophical systems in single voice pronounce the existence of a metaphysical self as ultimate substratum of the individual being. The deviant depiction of Indian philosophy has been the single cause for it to be branded as a speculative, spiritual, and theological, as the cause of being logical, argumentative, and analytical. As a matter of fact, here we have as many as even more varieties of theories of consciousness as we have in the West. While for some systems consciousness is continuous term, continuous term, which may be best to avoid from philosophical discussions. For few others, it is everything worth discussing in philosophy, for it has been marked as the ultimate reality. For some other systems, its role is nominal, only as an attribute of the self or the brain, while for some others, it is quite material but of the finest nature. Though such divergent positions like systems poles apart with regard to consciousness, one is this indefinite Indian philosophers since ancient times have identified it as one of the key issues in philosophy. And it has the conviction of many contemporary Indian thinkers that current researchers on consciousness will have to Lord pick up this old or ancient baskets. So I'm just moving on to the theories of, that means Jaina theories in Jaina's consciousness. Uh, Jain reality comprises two components, Jiva, that means soul or living substance, and Ajiva, non-soul, inanimate substance. Ajiva is further divided into two categories, non-sentient material entities and non-sentient non-material entities. In essential characteristics of Jiva are Chedana, Sukha, Virya. In it is pure state. Jiva possesses these qualities limitlessly. The souls, finite in number, are divisible in their embodied state into two main classes, immobile and mobile, according to the number of sense organs possessed by the body they inhabit. The first group consists of souls inhabiting immeasurably small parts of earth, water, fire, and air, along with the vegetable kingdom, which possesses only the sense of touch. The second group comprises souls that inhabit bodies with that has between 2 and 5 sense organs. Moreover, the universe is populated with an infinite number of minute beings, which is called nigodas. Here is a reference for the nigodas. It is a cluster of minute beings called nigodas, belongs to the lowest class of jivas, which possesses only the sense of touch and undergo such common functions as respiration and metabolism, but have little hope to ever progress to higher spiritual or bodily status. Some of which are slowly evolving, while the rest have no changes of emerging from their wretched state. Formless, sorry, wretched states. Yeah, formless and genderless jiva cannot be directly perceived by the status. Like the universe, it is without a point of ultimate origin or end. While not all pervasive, it can by contradiction or expansion occupy various amounts of space. Like the light of the lamp in a small or a large room, jiva can fill both the smaller and the larger bodies it occupies. The soul assumes the exact dimensions of the body it occupies, but it is not identical with that body. Or on death, it assumes the shape of the last physical body that housed it. Matter, which is called the Pudgala, has the characteristics of touch, taste, smell, and color. However, its essential characteristics lack of consciousness. The smallest unit of matter is the atom, that means paramanu. Heat, light, and shade are all forms of fine matter. The non-sentient, non-material substance are like space, time, and principle of motion and its arrest. They are always pure and are not subject to defilement. The principles of motion and its arrest permeate the universe. They do not exist independently, but rather forms a necessary precondition for any objects moved or coming to rest. Jaina system acknowledges consciousness as essential of the soul, Chedana Lakshana Jivaha. According to Jainas, consciousness is the essential characteristics of the self. It is the very essence of the self and not an advantageous quality. The substratum of consciousness is neither the brain nor the body. Its substratum is only the self. Jainism maintains that the whole universe can be brought under two everlasting, uncreated, external, or coexisting categories, which are called Jiva and Ajivas. We already have coming through that. Jiva is the conscious spirit and Ajiva is the unconscious non-spirit. Again, the category of Jiva is divided into, as we already have seen that. I'm just skipping a little bit. Yeah. The lowest souls which inhabit the material atoms appear to be lifeless and unconscious. But in fact, life and consciousness are present in them, though in a dormant form. For them, consciousness is not present everywhere, but can be situated in the body. This consciousness is the essence of the soul or jiva. Mind is only an internal sense organ, which is composed of a group of atoms. The Jaina views of consciousness has been characterized as metaphysical but not transcendental. For souls are situated within the body and expands the whole body as light expands as given space. In the bound state, the karma particles called kashaya flows into the soul. The state is called astrava. An aspirant desirous to release should seek ways to stop the inflow of karma to the self, a state which is called samvara. Even after the attainment of samvara, still the self may continue to be in the bound state until the already flow in karma particles are also dried out. A state is called nirjara. Once the state is achieved, the jiva becomes kevali and becomes omnipresent and omniscient. Till then, the self function as is confined to the physical body, primarily due to the entanglement of karmic particles which are material in nature. Primarily due to the entanglement which karmic particles, I just repeat that. The nature of the self, which is nothing, it reveals only when there is no shred of karma. Though all souls are really alike in its pure form, in experience there are degrees of consciousness with which the jiva are graded in terms of karma obstacles attached to them. The soul in its intrinsic nature possesses infinite faith, infinite knowledge, infinite bliss, and infinite power. Jainism maintains that a jiva is the real knower, real agent, and the real experiencer, jnata, karta, and bhokta respectively. Jiva like matter, motion, rest, and space is described as astika dravya, a substance which possesses continuant parts like parts extending in space. However, we may note that it is included in astika dravyas not because its continuous possession expands in space, for it does not extend in space like matter. It is like light, just as light spreads the whole region, so too the self encompasses the body in which it dwells. And just as many lights may remain in the same space without coming into conflict with one another, similarly, the soul fills the space without any conflict. Every soul, therefore, can directly and immediately know everything if it is not obstructed by matter. Freedom from matter means omniscient and emancipation. Avadi, Manaparyaya, and Kevala are powers the aspirant would receive as he progresses along the path of being released from karma. Thus, though technically jivas are said to be quantitatively distinct and qualitatively alike, but in experience, jivas are quantitatively and qualitatively distinct, for each jiva is identified with the life of the being. Though it's formless, jiva takes the form of the body which it illuminates. The soul of an ant is as big as the body of it, and the soul of an elephant is as big as it elephant itself. In other words, the soul is coextensive with the body. Though at the stage of Jina or the Kevala Jnani, the transcendental nature of the self is asserted. For all practical purposes, the self has been conceived as the life of the being itself, and to that extent, it is metaphysical but not transcendental. Some Jaina thinkers views that mind as a sense organ, while some others do not consider it so. Nevertheless, all agree that mind in effect is something more than a sense organ, though it functions only partially as a sense organ. Yeah. Oh God. So I think I will have to. How much? So I'm just concluding with my findings in the concluding remarks. How the theory of the consciousness in Jainism is means explaining means sorry conceiving the in the social world, means the Jainas are living in the social world, and how their life is elevating to the higher status. The main emphasis of Jainism is on ahimsa, non-injury. This attitude of Jainism is more due to its rational consciousness than emotional compassion. It is not based on social follow feeling, but on individual responsibility. Jainism presumes infinite capacity for spiritual progress in every individual. Infinite knowledge and joy is the innate character of every soul. What is needed is complete non-interference from outside. Given freedom of development, every individual is bound to progress. Interference means spiritual dragging. Truth not be forced, but is only to be preached. Individual freedom is more helpful than social pressure. Spiritualism gives more importance to individual perfection than to social progress. Life is not for enjoyment, but for extortion. Deep spiritualism was the characteristics of the age of Mahavira. It is not for an improved life that exertion is recommended, but it is for a transformed existence that penances are prescribed. Heaven is not the ideal. Freedom from worldly pleasures and suffering is the end. Jaina attitude is not the is the least pessimistic. It is realistic and optimistic. Suffering is as much as evil as worldly pleasures, but voluntary suffering for the sake of radical transformation is preferable to the worldly pleasures. Deep faith in the spiritual freedom inspires a self-imposed suffering. There is no description of the nature of free existence. The end is not envisaged. The means stands justified by itself. This is the background as a result of which the philosophical introspective of Jainism was elevated. So I'm just making my findings at last. Jaina theory of consciousness is titled as non-reductive theory of consciousness, for which the reason that they propound a theory of consciousness that is neither materialist nor functionalist. Consciousness for them can neither be reduced to a material entity, nor it is mere function of the substance. It is necessary non-material, but at the same time, it is not transcendent either. In reality, Jainism itself a way of life. The Tirthankaras never denied the material world or Ajiva in the metaphysical point of view. For them, the reality is pluralistic and truth is relative. Nevertheless, conceiving the idea of consciousness with the connection to the material world and the Jaina life is the significant notion. As far as consciousness is immanent in the non-material entities, which is called Jiva, is not pure apart from Ajiva or empirical world. The matter and spirit are adhered each other in the social world, and when the true faith on the Triratnas gives the individual soul to identify the pure consciousness, which is helping the soul to elevate towards the higher realm and attain the freedom from this world. Thank you.
Thank you, Semi, for your good paper. Now we can invite any two questions on it. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Simi, for your interesting paper. My question is not My question is not only to your presentation, but even in the inaugural session, when the keynote speaker was speaking, I had this kind of question in my mind, but then it wasn't allowed because it was inaugural session. But since you also spoken about Jain's philosophy's contribution to social realm, right? Now, in that context, I would like to ask you, especially the concept of aparigraha, right? Where it speaks for that people should not accumulate the wealth which is not needed, right? Or they should go on giving away to the other people's, right? Now, this is really fascinating idea, but I would like you to reflect upon Jana's perspective, whether we should really look for certain policy measures where the accumulation of property itself is dipped into bud, right? You're getting my, so that it is stopped at the very policy level that people are not getting the scope of the property or maximize their empire of the wealth, right? So, or suppose if we speaks that people can legitimately accumulate the wealth if they are not using any illegal method. But the question may also arise, what about uh, the question of policy? If the policy itself is deeply problematic, or looking at it from ethical perspective, it may be completely unethical. Suppose the kind of democratic system we are living in, where if our polity has allowed the scope of private property, right? Now, since it is there, people can go on amassing the wealth, and then you can speak for, or you can appeal individuals, right, to give away whatever they have, quote unquote, acquire the wealth according to the legality or according to the policies. But the policies themselves may be very deeply problematic. So whatever may appear to us as if it has been accumulated to legal uh, process or nothing illegal has been committed, but then the policies themselves might be deeply problematic. And today we all understand that the private property to such a exponential growth cannot be accumulated without having a deep hands in glove with the government, right? So they are actually making certain kinds of policies favoring the capitalist people, right? So how would you reflect on this to where the Jainism can offer certain understanding? Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul sir, for the question. Actually, I think I'm not the right person to answer this one. I'm just going through the Jaina, the social world in the book. I just tell you that. Just a minute. Tatya, the studies in Jaina philosophy. There only I just going through. Then very little bit only I know about the social world. When I go through the book, then I know that I go to know that there is no such a discrimination in between the higher realm or lower realm. Other than that, and also this asteya means the non-possession, I think, and I don't know much more about that because I'm not a apt person for that. But in a philosophical point of view, that what I just mentioning that in the consciousness perspective of Jaina philosophy, and in the social world, how the person should be in a conscious level, and how the person can elevate his consciousness to the higher realm. So the social setup for the Jaina is very well is comfortable for that. That I just understood from this the Mahavira's conceiving the social world. So more than that, I'm not much well with that particular question. I think if someone is means those who are deeply go with that, they can do anyway. Thank you so much, sir.
Actually, sir, you are very practical and down to earth. The thing is, you can't, in that way, you can't relate everything with religion. There are certain things like if communism will established, as Marx said, then only this discrimination will be wiped off. When there will be no private property, there will be no haves and haves not, so there will be no exploitation. But in case of religion, as Jain it may be, one thing which we can learn from it, that we should minimize our want. If we do this at the individual level, then definitely at a large scale, at some point of time, this thing will be went off. Like I'm giving a simple example. अगर कहीं ऑफर चलता है, से बिग बाजार, Amazon, फ्लिपकार्ट, व्हाट विल डू कि एक चीज का दाम हमको 10% कम मिल रहा है, या 10 रुपया का चीज हमको 1 रुपया में मिल रहा है, व्हाट वी विल डू, हम लोग उसको घर में वो सामान भर लेते हैं, बाद में चाहे उसको फेंकना ही क्यों ना पड़े. तो दिस इज व्हाट, दिस इज excess accumulation of anything. So agar if we mentally prepared ki no, if I want one, we will buy one only, then others will also enjoy. If this feeling will gradually, inculcate in ourselves, then definitely this sort of privatization or excess accumulation of wealth, because agar aapke paas Kailash mountain ki tarah wealth bhi hoga, you will never be satisfied. Your happiness, you will never get with that. So if we all minimize our want, and we want to, share with others कि आज मेरे पास एक है तो उसको भी उससे आधा दे दे, it will give you more pleasure and happiness. This is actually the concept in Jainism. Thank you.
What you're saying, I completely understand that Jainism or any other systems, they are appealing at the individual level. They are appealing to get individual transformed completely at the consciousness level. But I believe the social structures are above the individuals, and rather they are making what beings we are. Society for individuals, and if the certain social structures, I mean, on the one hand, you may appeal not to accumulate the wealth, but on the other hand, the social and political structures are pushing for it. So unless you also get certain radical change at the policy level, structures level, you can't really have the individuals permanently getting rid of the property. Yes, both should be ARP. Yeah.
Is right. This is a dialectical process. This is a dialectical process where individual and the society, and as I see, if I apply Hegelian principle, one thing leads to another and it's opposite. So rules and wealth is for others, riches is for you. So that's why religion plays a role, or culture plays a role to limit you. It does not say don't become rich or wealthy, but it says to curb your desires. Okay, nobody says don't become rich. Religion never says don't earn money or don't become wealthy. But as I said, wealth is for others, for the society, and riches is for you. This is what it is. Even in the time of Mahavira or Buddha, or people were rich, they themselves were Kshatriyas. But when you realize your own self, not by any rules and regulations, then only you transform. And then only such rules and regulations are there. Because there is greed, there is charity. And this dialectical process will always remain, and the gap is always remain. So we must recognize the gap, and we have to rise over above it. No, it's true. That's why I said, see, no, it's okay. No, don't just, we are having very false concepts of Anekantvad and vegetarianism. Let me tell you that. How can people in Tundra region and Sahara region survive? Let us accept the fact. Be honest. The principle only of Jainism everywhere with our ruler that you cannot do that. You can't do that. So I'm just telling you, let us accept that this is a dialectical process that every religion, every tradition faces. Okay, and let us critically evaluate every principle and see what solutions we can get out of it, the possible solutions. Not that only we are the best. Let me only tell you that. Let us acknowledge the fact that there are limitations. Any religion or any culture grows in certain geographical conditions, environmental conditions, in certain psychological conditions. Let us accept. द्रव्य क्षेत्र काल भाव का कंसेप्ट प्रैक्टिकल है और उस हिसाब से वो जो एनवायरमेंट ज्योग्राफिकल कंडीशंस के रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशन निर्माण होते हैं वो रिलीजन के रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशंस बन जाते हैं. Which religion? What do you mean by it?
If you understand what is the right meaning of religion,
Yeah,
you could not have questioned that. He was asking whether we can do something with this policy measures. So if you have studied aparigraha or minimalistic practices of Jainism or in any religion, so you could not have asked this question. Say they are for more than 2,500 years ago. There are external position and internal positions. So these are the positions. Why do you need a policy framework? Policy framework is required for communist country, not for democratic country. And religion is for democracy, for liberation. He was talking about the limitation. You please accept. He is transcending about the limitation. What kind of religion are you talking about? It is very easy. You have not minimized your identity, and then you are talking about कि ये इससे क्या होगा? होगा क्यों नहीं होगा? You have not understood. See, there are three gems in Jainism. One is the right, Samyak Darshan, Samyak Gyan, Samyak Charity. So, do you have a right observation of problem? No. Listen, ma'am. Do you have a right understanding? Do you have a right observation? Have you rightly observed that? That is the problem, na? Also, not particularly. I am saying have an observation. What is the
Excuse me.
Okay, the seventh vrat of Jainism talks about Viruddha Rajai Kame. So we belong to a democratic country, communist country. How our religion will apply in that country, or how those principles of that country we understand. No, don't let us forget the question. Exactly.
You have many religion. You have a community. आप रिलीजन अगर तो कम्युनिज्म को रिलीजन बना लेंगे. आप किसी भी चीज को रिलीजन तो बना ही लेंगे ना. सुनिए, जैन धर्म में जो रिलीजन के बारे में बात की गई है, इट इज नॉट अबाउट जैनिज्म. वे ऑफ लाइफ भी आप छोड़ दीजिए. वो क्या कहते हैं, जैन धर्म का सार क्या है? राग. आपके अंदर हर एक चीजों के प्रति राग है, आइडेंटिफिकेशंस है. अगर आप छोड़ दीजिए, जैनिज्म की बात मैं नहीं करता हूँ. अगर आप राग की बात करते हैं, यू डोंट हैव एनी आइडेंटिफिकेशन, टेल मी व्हाट काइंड ऑफ प्रॉब्लम विल यू हैव?
Sorry, excuse me. Now we'll proceed. This is the last. Yes.
Actually, this kind of discussion, it is because we are having two conceptions here. One, it is the religion, which is talking about the society, the individuality, and one, it is about the philosophical view, which it is about the ourself, our way of living, our understanding. So yes, the religion, it came just when the society came, but this kind of philosophical view on which we are talking about, like how she was saying that we are not coming to the world for enjoying. This kind of, it is a deep philosophical view. This is not religion. This is, I guess. Yeah, this is not religion.
एक मिनट, जैन धर्म में एक बात कही गई है, संग्रह करो परिग्रह नहीं. मतलब कलेक्शन कर सकते हैं लेकिन उससे लगाव नहीं होना चाहिए. अटैचमेंट नहीं होना चाहिए।
हाँ।
तो एक शब्द में ही आ जाता है, संग्रह करो लेकिन परिग्रह नहीं, जरूरत पड़ने पर पूरा का पूरा दान कर सको, तो अपरिग्रह में ये भी आता है। और दूसरी बात आई है, जैन धर्म कभी किसी पे कुछ थोपता नहीं है, वो अपने बारे में बताता है, अगर आपको सूट करता है तो उसको अडॉप्ट करिए, कहीं उसमें विवाद की बात ही नहीं है। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सभी के लिए।
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Simi, for your good paper, and it creates some interaction in a very proper way. And I think Swastika's and Simi's paper became more interactive paper. Anyhow, now we can proceed to the next speaker. I think whether he is present or not, but I can announce again, Akash Deep. Akash Deep is absent, so now we can go for yes, go for the you can say summarization of this session by Dharmachand Jain sir. So I would like to request eminent speaker, eminent Professor Dharmachand Jain to preside the session. Please, sir.
This was the quality of this session, that after all three papers, dialogue happened. And for successful seminar, this is needed. So I thank all three speakers for their paper, for their successful presentation. That dialogue happened. And there are interested scholars who can ask question. So I want to also thank them also. First paper was presented by Padma Prasad from Tumkur, Dr. Padma Prasad from Tumkur, Karnataka. And he presented Jaina way of life as depicted in Kannada literature, both folk and classical. But I want to attract your attention that a huge literature has been written in Kannada language. Shat Khandagam, the famous canonical aspect, canonical construction of Digambar sect was also written in Kannada, and it is in Kannada, from Kannada language it was transformed in Sanskrit and Prakrit, Tika of Sanskrit and commentary of Sanskrit and the original text in Prakrit. So it was very helpful in restoring this text from Kannada Prati. So there are many treatises of Jainism in many languages, in Kannada, in Tamil, in Gujarati, in Marathi, in Sanskrit, in Prakrit, in Rajasthani, in so many languages. So one of ancient language is Kannada, and he presented his 2-3 treatises or 2-3 works. He mentioned that Digambar sect is living there from ancient times, but Shvetambars migrated there before 300-400 years back. So he also attracted our attention about Bhattarak Parampara, and he told that some of the Chaityalayas are renovated there. Yashodhar Charit, he mentioned that there are 60 Yashodhar Charitas in different languages, but in Kannada also it is found. He mentioned about Panchanuvrat, 5 Anuvrataj, and he historically mentioned his points. Way of life, he mentioned about 6 duties of a householder: Dev Puja, Guru Pasti, Swadhyaya, Sanyamastapah, Danam Cheti Grihasthanam, Shat Karmani Dine Dine. what duties, what 6 duties are of a householder. He mentioned about it, but I could not found that the Jaina way of life, complete Jaina way of life in his presentation. Some of them were mentioned. And folk literature, a question was asked for folk literature. So he mentioned about folk literature in his answer. And about classical literature, he mentioned in his paper. So I thank him for his presentation. Second paper was by Swastika. She is doctor. She is Swastika, but research scholar. Becoming doctor. So from Dravya Nikshep, she is doctor. I wish her doctorate. There were many questions from her paper, and she replied very perfectly answered. So I thank her for his presentation and the style of answering. It means he was command on his presentation, his paper, and his thoughts, her thoughts. She discussed about sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic food, but previously it was mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. In Jainism, it appears in Ashadhara's Grantha Dharmamrit, Ashagar Dharmamrit, Anagar Dharmamrit, Agar Dharmamrit, Sagar Dharmamrit. In Sagar Dharmamrit, and in commentary, it is appeared Sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic Ahar, and some in other texts also after that. And she mentioned about packaged food. Really, packaged food is not good for health. It may be protected from some germs, but it is preserved with some chemicals, and those chemicals are not beneficial for our health. She talked about purified and filtered water, boiled water, but she mentioned that boiled water remains protected for 24 hours. But in our tradition, it is not accepted by all Jains. Some of them accept it for 4 prahars, means 12 hours only. So it is not unanimously accepted that it is acceptable for 24 hours. So you can do amendment in your paper. Third paper was presented by Dr. Simi C. Mani, tracing the concept of consciousness in Jainism and its impact on the social world. And there was a long discussion about her presentation. And this dialogue was not with her. Dialogue was there among the scholars. Only one person, one scholar asked her question, and she replied. But after that, dialogue was among the scholars. So this was a new aspect of this session. Consciousness, there was a seminar in Florida International University, complete seminar on consciousness in Jainism. But this paper presents in a different way. It defines consciousness in a different way, but consciousness is an essential attribute and nature of a soul, a living being, soul and living being. Without consciousness, no living being can sustain. So consciousness, what is consciousness? Consciousness is, if we define it with another attributes, then there is sensation in consciousness, and capacity of knowing capacity is there. So darshan and gyan, these two attributes are needed in every consciousness, and every consciousness can be defined by these two attributes, and these may be called as upayoga. Upayoga, the vyapar of knowing, the activity of knowing. Activity of knowing is chetana, is consciousness. So without activity of knowing, we can't say that it is chetan. But in sleeping mode also there is chetana, because if you touch and you call him or her, then he can respond after some time. So there is chetana. Chetana that is working in different way, not with sense organs, outer sense organs, but in the body it is working. And then we can have dreams also in that chetana. So consciousness is an essential aspect or essential nature of a soul and a living being. Soul without body, those are siddhas, and soul with body, the worldly living beings, human beings also. We are also having chetana, consciousness. So consciousness develops many attributes like compassion. Compassion is also an aspect of consciousness. A soul, a living being with compassion can have sympathy, can express maitri, can express friendliness, can express harmony. Every value of human being can be expressed through consciousness. Without consciousness, no value comes out. No value, every value comes out from consciousness. So consciousness, we can protect our consciousness, or we can purify our consciousness through equanimity, samatha, and meditation. So we should purify our consciousness. If we purify our consciousness, then we can work perfectly, individually, and we can help society also. So social aspect of consciousness comes from compassion, comes from friendliness, maitri, comes from pramukha, and comes from cooperation to others. So socially, if we want to connect, everybody is connected, but if we want to connect, then there is a mention in Tattva Sutra, Parasparopagraho Jivanam. Parasparopagraho Jivanam. It is also a nature of all living beings. It is also a nature of all living beings. They do upagraha, they do upakar to other beings also. Plants give us oxygen, we give them carbon dioxide. Parents nurture their children, children also give them love. Teachers teach us, and we also help them teaching. So there is parasparopagraho jivanam, and it goes in society. When it goes in society, then we prosper the society, we can change the society, we can help the society in many ways. There was a talk about a parigraha and parigraha also. So if we think not only of us, not only of individual, then we can experience others' souls also, others' kast. What is the trouble of others? We can experience it, and we can be ready to remove their trouble, their sorrows. And this is the result of real consciousness. And this consciousness becomes more purified. When we connect with society and think of society, then it becomes more purified. And in the Buddhism, Mahakaruna, it becomes Mahakaruna. And in Jainism, it goes uh, to remove the moha karma. We can remove our moha karma, deluding karma through this compassion, through this friendliness behavior, through harmony with others, and thinking of others also. And if we are having anything, so we can use it for ourselves, and it can be used by others also. And that is needed for the promotion of the society in every aspect. And parigraha is a limitedness, a संकुचित विचार. परिग्रह स्वार्थ भावना को पोषित करता है. And in aparigraha, we are not attached to that, we are detached. So what we are having, that is for use, not for having ownership. Ownership is not good. Ownership is not recommended by Jainas. We are honored to serve others, to protect it for others also. That is the parigraha. We have to remove our attachment. We should be detached, and we should use what we have. If we have gyan, then we can distribute it to others also. If we can have, we are having money, then we can help others also. And if we are having time, then we can give it to others also. So what we have, we can use it for others also, not only money. And we scholars also concentrate only on money. Money should be given to others. What gyan should be given, knowledge should be given, time should be given. What is we are having, all things can be used for others also. Then the individual is also purifies, and he can prosper himself and all the society and the world. Thank you very much for giving me this second chance. One is free for another one. So I denied it, but it was the pressure of M.R. Mehta साहब. So I came here, and मैं क्षमा याचना करता हूँ, मुझसे कुछ ऐसा कुछ कहने में आया हो जो आपको ठीक न लगा हो. धन्यवाद.
Thank you, respected Professor Dharmachand Jain sir, for your patience from the last session to this session. Again, he also presented a paper, and both the sessions chaired by you. And also thank to all the speakers, those who presented very well, and it became very much interactive in nature, and we learned a lot. And also we can extend our thanks to all the audiences. And we have another session after this. So now there is tea break for some minutes, please. We have tea there in, okay.
So thanks to all of you. And now it is tea time too. So we have 15 minutes. So just after having tea, we will be there again after 15 minutes, just about, I think, 4. So all of you welcome once again in next session.